Hello, students, and welcome to another sixth grade math episode with me, your host, Mr. Nerlich. So, today we're working on lesson 1.2, and lesson 1.2 talks about how do you compare and order integers. So, when you compare and order integers, you must first graph the integers on a number line. So, we're going to graph them on a number line, okay? And then you place the integers in order from left to right. So we're going to place the integers from left to right to order them from least to greatest. Okay, I know it was a lot, so I'll say it again. So when you are comparing and ordering integers, you want to place the integers from left to right on the number line to help you order them from least to greatest. Okay, so what are integers? Well, integers are whole numbers that can be 0, positive, or negative. So integers are whole numbers that can be 0, positive, or negative. All right, so we're going to look at an example. So for this example, it shows the days of the week and the score for golf. And in golf, when you have a negative, that is a good thing because you are getting birdies or eagles or things like that, and you're below par. And your goal is to be as low as you can. When you have positive numbers, then that means you are above par, which is not a good thing. So you're getting bogeys, double bogeys, and things like that. So let's draw this out. We have okay, so we have golf, and we have your golf score on the bottom. And you might be saying, wow, that's a lot of days to golf. But if you are someone who is good at golf or really wants to get better at golf, you will play a lot of golf. I know when I was in college, to get better, I played every Friday, and we played multiple rounds on Fridays, and because we had to work with our work schedules, my friend and I. But playing every Friday multiple times really helped us to get better at golf. Enough about me and looking at this problem. So we'll do Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And his golf scores were the following. He was +2, -6. He was 4, -3, 1, -2, -1. Okay. So now we want to graph these numbers on the number line. And normally, when I have positive or negative numbers and they are pretty close to 0, I like to put 0 in the middle because that kind of just helps me to organize my number line. Obviously, if I had numbers that were in the millions and then I never got to 0, I wouldn't really need 0 on my number line because I would be way over here and it wouldn't make sense to put in 0 because then my number line would look weird. Also, when you create your number line, you want your little hash marks on your number line to be approximately the same distance apart as best you can. Because again, it will distort your number line if you have 0 here and 1 here, and then 2, 3, 4, they'll be crunched together, but one will look really big. Okay, so you want to try and make sure that when you make your number line that you have your numbers evenly spaced apart. All right, so let's look. We have -6, so I'm going to put that first. And then I see I have a 2 and a 4 and a -3 and a 1 and a -2 and a -1. Okay, so now I have them all on my number line like you have in your notes. And you want to read the graph. Okay, so we're going to read the graph from left to right. We're going to read the graph from left and this is going to be from least to greatest. Problems will tell you if they want you to do them from greatest to least or least to greatest. The normal way, or the most often way that people read, we always read from smallest to largest. When we count, we don't usually start at 100 and go back to 0. We start at 0 and go 1, 2, 3 and count up. So that's why normally, unless otherwise stated, you're going to go from least to greatest or left to right, because you're going from the smaller number first. And when we count, we always start at the smaller number. It just happens to be negative in this case. All right. So if I read the graph, I will have -6, and then I have -3, -2, -1. So those three are the underlined numbers. Then I have 1, which is not underlined because you have that. And then 2, and then 4 is your last one that's underlined. Okay, so you should have in your blanks -3, -2, -1, and 4. And how I'd read this as -6, -3, -2, -1, 1, 2, 4. They're listed from least to greatest, and I put them with commas in between because I'm making a list. And when we make a list of things, such as we do in writing, when you're listing 2 or more things, you always put commas in between. So if I said I like apples, oranges, and bananas, I would have commas after apples and oranges so that I show that it's a list. Same thing in math. Okay, so now we're going to move on to writing inequalities. And an inequality just means that something is not equal to something, but we can still compare things, okay? So it's a statement that two quantities are not equal. So we will not use an equal sign because they're not equal. All right, so then we have this symbol, and that means is greater than. Okay, so you have is greater than. And then on this symbol, it's is less than. Now, I know you've seen this before in maybe, I don't know, 4th grade. I know for sure in 5th grade, and maybe even 3rd grade. But I know for sure you've seen it in the elementary school. Now, you can put the 2 little eyes and the teeth if you want. Okay, sometimes people like to still do that. If you need to help remind you which way your the mouth is facing, help tell you which one's greater than. We always want to say that when we read it, we always read them from left to right, and the teeth or the open part of the mouth, the symbol, is towards the larger number. So even in less than, when we get into some examples, you'll see that this is open towards the larger number because we're reading from left to right. All right, and a number line can help you write an inequality. So here's an example. Number 2, we're going to use an inequality to compare the following two numbers. Okay? We're going to use an inequality, and we're going to compare the following two numbers of 17 and 11. So I'm going to draw my number line, and this here is a prime example of why I don't need to put 0 on my number line, because simply I'm not going down to 0. So to put 0 on here would be, the number line would be this long, and we don't need a number line that long. And the last thing I want to say is that you make sure that on your number lines you have these arrows at the end, because a number line means a line means that, and we'll talk when you refresh on geometry, but it goes infinitely in that direction. So this continues on forever and ever. So I would be able to continue that line straight forever, and this same thing, I'd be able to continue this line forever and ever that way. Okay, so when you make your number line, it's important to put those arrows, because the number line still continues. We're just looking at this small part of our number line. All right, so we have two numbers, 11 and 17. Okay, let's make it a little darker. There we go. 11 and 17. And so I want to compare them. So since 17 is to the right of 11 on the number line, so 17 is to the right of 11 on the number line, then it is greater than 11. Okay? So then I would rewrite that as, sorry about that, we'll rewrite that as 17 is greater than 11. Notice the openings toward my larger number. If I were to write it this way, I would have to go less than, because the opening has to be towards the larger number, and 11 is smaller or less than 17. Okay. Now, there's another way you can compare and order integers, is to line them up. Okay, so we're going to line them up and compare each place value individually. We're going to line them up, and we're going to compare, line them up and compare each place value individually. And this becomes important when we're using larger numbers or decimals or things like that. When we're using just 17 and 11, I can draw a number line. But when you start getting numbers with decimals and things, it's harder to draw always a number line. And so this is a strategy you can use without having to draw a number line to compare numbers. So we're going to look at 1,457 and 1,396 for our example 3. So we're going to compare 457, and 1,396. Okay, so the best way is to line them up vertically, we said. So if we line them up vertically, we'll have 1,457. It doesn't matter which one goes on top. I just left to right, so I'm doing it this way. 1,396. Okay, so I have my numbers lined up vertically, correct? Okay, so I'm going to look at the first column, and I notice in my thousands place, these are the same number. So since these are both the same number, I move on to the next place value, okay? Then move on to the next place value. All right. Then I look at my hundreds place, and I notice that, oh, look, they're not the same. Okay? So when I look at them here and I notice they're not the same, then I say, well, I notice since 4 is greater than 3, then that means that 1,457 457 is greater than 1,396. Okay, so a little darker for you. All right, so you always want to, and I can cross out this place value column because I already used it, but you always want to start with the largest place value first and move to the right. Had I started this way, I would have said, oh, well, okay, 7 is bigger than 6, is greater than 6, so I know it's bigger. But let's say if those were both 7s and I got to here and said, oh, look, 9 is bigger than 5. Oh, this number on the bottom is bigger. That would be incorrect, okay? So you want to make sure you always start from left to right with your largest place value. And that way you ensure that you're looking at the biggest place value first, and you move to the smaller place values. It doesn't matter. If this would have been a 2 on the bottom here, then this number would be bigger and we wouldn't have to go any further. So then we would know, oh, 2,000 something's bigger than 1,000 something, which means I can stop. Okay. When comparing integers, now this is important, okay? This part here is, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to make sure this is solid in our noggins here, that we have a firm understanding of this. So when comparing integers, you read them from left to right on a number line. You're comparing them from least to greatest. So when we read them from left to right on a number line, okay, so left to right on a number line, you're comparing them from least to greatest. That is important. When you compare integers and you read them from right to left on a number line, so we're going to go right to left on a number line, you're comparing them from greatest to least. So once again, left to right, least to greatest. Right to left, greatest to least. All right, Falcons. I know this was kind of a longer lesson today, but I have faith you guys can do it. Try some of these problems on your own. Good luck and keep soaring. Have a great day.